All right, welcome back, family, to the Love and Light Podcast, episode 58 on how New York redistricting really works. I'm Willie Lightfoot.
And I am Lovely Warren.
And once again, we welcome our listeners and our viewers back to another great show where we're going to be breaking down something that affects every voter in every neighborhood, in every election. The New York State redistricting, what it is, what's changing, and why it matters. We're going to keep it simple. We're going to keep it real. We're going to keep it relevant. Because what? Knowledge is power, and the power belongs to the people. This is election time, Lovely, and I was just having this conversation with my wife yesterday about voter turnout, and how the voter turnout has been extremely low, and I contribute that to a couple of things. We've talked about voter apathy on this show before, but I'm also here locally because it's not a national thing, I think, right? It depends on what region you are in. But even here in upstate New York, from my understanding, from my research, Syracuse, some of their voting has gone up or is increasing. Albany, Buffalo area, we've seen increases in voter participation. But here locally in Rochester, we've seen a decline. And I'm here to say that, especially since, today, my father would have been 86 years old. So happy Heavenly Father, born day to my dad, the late Honorable Willie Walker Lightfoot. But I also want to mention the late Honorable David F. Gant, who these individuals, including even we were able to do, in my opinion, we're missing those types of voices that really did community organizing, political education, registration, training, organizing, and get out the vote. We don't see the GOTV, the get out the vote.
But do you think they really want that locally?
That's what I'm trying to. I'm trying to get there. I'm trying, and what I really believe is that things have gotten to a place here locally where the powers that be and the system is working for them. It's working for them not to have great voter participation. And because the same individuals are able to remain in power.
You said it. You said a word there. I won't deny it.
So, when we talk about redistricting, when we talk about the political system and systems and how they work, I think it's important that we educate people. And I'm so glad for WDK has given us this platform, this opportunity, ability to shine light. Because we said we shine light on things that we love. We talk about things that people don't talk about or don't talk about nearly enough. And I don't hear these conversations in other spaces.
No, I mean, I think that people are, in some ways they're afraid. We talked about voter apathy. And, at this point in time, I think that if I imagine the time when your father, when Assemblyman David Gant, when Minister Franklin Florence and all the great civil rights, they rallied around a common issue that meant everything to everybody, right?
Yes.
And so, what is our common issue today? It is voting. It is the fact that things are changing for our people drastically before our eyes. It is the fact that our children are being are being miseducated, and certain things are happening in our neighborhoods and in our communities, and by the time we realize it in the mass number, it is generally too late. And, there is a level of complacency, as you were talking, I started to think about what is our obligation to bring that forward, to start doing voter registration, to start educating people about what's going on, to have those comment, what's that issue of right now that our folks need to be paying attention to. And I think that this show is talking about it, redistricting,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
What was outlined and what is going to be outlined on the show today is truly about, that voter apathy, that voter, issue that most people don't look at. When we talk about redistricting and when we talk about voting, talk about redistricting and literally how we got here. But before we go there,
Yes. Yes.
I do want to talk about the gun trace report that was just released.
Yes.
That showed that 66% of the guns that have been confiscated in this area have been from out of towners. I want to commend you because, you've stayed committed to the work and committed to making sure that this data, this information with Brady, with City Hall and all of that gets out there, and it needs to be known, right? How does 66% of the guns that come to our community come from somewhere else?
Yeah, thank you. It's the work of so many that started that work, and I wanted to be very clear about that. And when I was at the press conference, I mentioned that because I think it's very important that we always understand those who help us to be able to move this work forward. And it was your administration, yourself, and the others that were under your administration that helped to launch the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition, to help to launch the state of emergency that started the gun state of emergency, which this current administration has continued, but it started under your administration. The work at that time, we were touting 20 to 30 homicides a year. We were heading in a trajectory that was lower numbers than we've ever had before. Prior to the pandemic, we had an 89.9% arrest rate with homicides during your administration. And as a result of the recommendations from the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition, which we recommended that, because I think at that time they were around a 30% arrest rate for shootings. So the arrest rate was low for shootings, but it was very high for homicides. Almost 9 out of 10 people that committed a homicide got arrested, and that's good numbers. However, it decreased and dropped significantly for shootings. So what we recommended is start treating the shootings like you treat homicides, with the same type of investigatory response. And then once that started happening, along with all of the other human service work that the city started to adopt that we didn't do before. So it was a collective. No one person can stand in front of a microphone and take credit for the gun violence dropping to record numbers. It is a collective of number one, God allowing it to be able to happen. And then 2, all of the individuals that are working in conjunction to make that happen, whether it's the police department, whether it's strategies, the coalition, boots on the ground, all of these people. So again, this is June, so it's Gun Violence Awareness Month. Wear orange, all that kind of stuff. So we felt it was important to highlight this, that here in our city, we've been fortunate enough where we've only had 3 homicides up until this point this year.
That's phenomenal.
One homicide. There's more homicides in the suburbs.
Well, I mean, it's not phenomenal. That's not what I
One
meant.
homicide is one homicide too many.
Absolutely.
However, compared to where we were, it is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And phenomenal work from the individuals that are doing this work every day and that are helping to do prevention, suppression, et cetera, education, eradication. But there are more homicides now in the suburbs than there are in the city of Rochester.
Wow.
Currently, right now.
Wow.
So that's significant, and we say hats off to everyone that is working to eradicate gun violence within our city.
Absolutely. It has been definitely a road that has been traveled for the last decade. The pandemic threw us for a loop, but
85 homicides we had one year during the pandemic, 2021, I believe.
Yeah. So, but now, things are getting back on track, and I commend you all for the work that you're doing, and commend you for the work that you did with that. Which leads us to, the topic that we're talking about today.
New York redistricting and how it really works. What is redistricting, Lovely? What is it?
So I really want to look at this and break this down as a puzzle, right? So you know how like when you get a puzzle, like and on a box of the puzzle, you have this picture, right? And the picture is nice, and this is what you're putting together, right? You have all these different pieces that go to this puzzle, and you're putting it together, right? And if one of those pieces, you put the piece in the wrong spot, then it doesn't work correctly, right?
That's right.
And so redistricting is like that, right? It is really dividing up the state of New York into a puzzle that has statistically the same amount of people in each of those districts. So if you're talking about the assembly districts, if you're talking about the Senate districts, if you're talking about the city council districts, you're dividing that up so that each of those districts have approximately the same amount of people in a specific geographical area.
So it happens every 10 years after the census. They update these lines, which make up, like Lovely was saying, this puzzle of these districts to make them balanced and fair. It affects who you vote for, how your community is going to be grouped, how much political power your neighborhood is going to have, which leads us to our next point. Well, who draws the lines?
Well, so there is an independent commission that draws the lines that from the state of New York. So so people have heard about this across every state does it differently, right?
And we're talking about the state of New York.
In the state of New York, there is an independent commission that has members that are appointed. These members are appointed by the legislature.
10 members.
And those members, they look at the map, they divide it up. And this is about state districts. So we're talking about like assembly and Senate districts, congressional districts. That is what's divided up. That's what this 10-member commission looks at. On a local level, right?
Yep.
Then the individual entities would divide that map up, meaning that, I believe that for the county legislature, they have a commission that they put together, same thing for the city. And so every entity has a group that will look at this independently and make the recommendations.
So to recap, because we want to make this understandable for everybody, and you did a great job in explaining that. Again, the Independent Redistricting Commission, that's what they're called for New York State, that creates the first draft of this map or this puzzle that Lovely's talking about. The commission, if it gets deadlocked, the state legislature then takes over, right? So that's just how important it is knowing your state legislatures and voicing your opinions in regards to, which we'll get into a little bit later, a lot of the laws that we've seen change even on the Supreme Court level. Then the lawmakers can pass the map with a simple majority, right? So the independent commission starts the process, but the legislature has the final say. So current rules for drawing the districts.
And in the end, it's the legislature that will decide, right? So, the independent commission, they bring forth things, but at the end of the day, the legislature will decide. And just know, let's be very clear that generally the lines are redrawn every 10 years. So it goes with the census. So the census numbers come out, and that's when the next year, that's when you would redraw the lines, because it's based on the number of people. So what is happening nationally, right? And this is what happened in California. This is what happened in Texas, tried to happen in Louisiana. And this is why they're asking New York to do this, right? Is because nationally, they're trying to make sure that the House, at minimum, right? Because no matter what, the Senate stays the same. It's the same 100 people, right? It's 2 senators per state, right? But in the House, right, the way that the districts are drawn and the boundaries that are drawn will determine whether there's a Democrat, a Republican, or independent that is going into the seat.
Well, hold on. Hold that thought. I gotta interrupt you because you gotta back up to happens after the census.
Yes.
Because see that we're skipping over that really quickly, but that's very, very, very significant. Many people every 10 years get these census in the mail, and people will say, I ain't filling that out. Now there could be an argument on both sides to say why to fill it out. I don't, or why not. But let's see how this plays. Let's see how this plays in this drawing of these maps, creating this puzzle as you're going into how these Senate seats are being redrawn and congressional seats, et cetera. But they're based on the consensus, the census. So think about that now. When how important it is that data, how important that data is, and oftentimes people often say too, and this is for our population who are incarcerated, our persons who are incarcerated, living in these rural areas, in these rural communities where they have a lot of black and brown people who are incarcerated in these prisons, in these rural communities, who are filling out these censuses and are residents of these rural communities, who typically who all obviously are part of this redrawing, but typically tend to end up getting funding that typically is for black and brown communities because they're showing a large black and brown residential population, but it's a prison residential population who won't be taking advantage of these benefits. But I just want people to understand how data matters and why it's so important, and especially when you start to transition into the conversation of what you're saying about them protecting or changing the dynamics of the majority in these seats federally, whether they be Senate or Congress, but how the data is being used to do that.
Absolutely. And I think that, I'm glad that you backed up to the census, because you're right. A lot of people walk away from it. They think like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to fill that out. But so many things matters from the census. It, how much money comes to a community from the federal government, how many votes, how many people, seats you have in a particular, for a state comes from your census numbers, education dollars. And so many things derive from this census data, right? And so typically every 10 years you have this census that comes out, and then you get into this redistricting, and then you decide like, okay, what areas where will this particular congressional person or assembly person or senator or, council person, what would they represent, right?
Yes.
And so when you think about it, what's happening now is how you draw these lines. Remember, it's a puzzle piece, right? And so if I'm looking at the city of Rochester, right, and say I want to cut out the majority of people of color, black and brown people, I'm automatically going to draw the line a specific way so that I only get a portion of them, a small portion, right? Or if I don't want them to have a large voting block, right? If I don't want black and brown people to have a large voting block, what am I going to do? I'm going to divide them up. And so everybody gets a little bit of it, right? So
disperse it.
They disperse it, right? So it's different when you have, 90, 70% of the people in a particular area, or as opposed to, I'm going to give you 20%. I'm going to give this person 20%. I'm going to give this person 20%. I'm going to give this person 20% and this person 20%. And then those people, they are 20% of 80%, 20% of only of the 100%, which means that the other folks get 80%, right?
Yes.
So that 20% doesn't have a voting block.
And see, it's easy for them, and I really want to draw this. That's why I wanted to go back to the data, because I wanted people to understand why vote. We always say on this show why voting matters, the importance of it, and so when you think of that, the people that are looking at these numbers, they're looking at not only racial and demographics and all of the demographics, age, and because they know who's eligible to vote, they know who doesn't vote. Typically 18 to 35 people are the lower population, the voting population. The seniors are more of the voting population, and that's across America. But so now the Board of Elections, who track these numbers of voter turnout, look, so now they can look at the census, they can see the demographics of the area. Then they can look at voter turnout, and they can see where people are voting and where they're not voting. And I'm just going to throw this out here. I'm just going to throw this out here locally, because we're talking about New York State, and then we're talking about Rochester and local politics. When you typically, and I bet you this stands true for every inner city in America or every low voter area in America, I'll put it like that. If you look at the areas that typically have very low voter turnout, I guarantee you see blight, you see constant lack of services and resources to those neighborhoods and communities. And here, I'll just throw it out there. There are three communities, three streets. I'm gonna bring it down to 3 streets in Rochester, New York. All right, Jefferson Avenue, Lowell Avenue, and Clinton Avenue. And I promise you, if you look at the same thing, if we're talking about this map or this puzzle, if you look at this puzzle and the data behind it, and you look at the demographics of Black and brown, these same neighborhoods are predominantly that, and then you look at the voter turnout in 11, 1 for 6, I'm going to bring it to zip codes now, 1 for 6, 11, 05, 21, or surrounding. You will see
06,
those turnouts are significantly low. And that determines resources. It determines the lack, I'll put it like this, the lack of resources that we see. Now, when you look at the larger, the demographics, census demographics, age, money, finances, stuff like that, and then you look at voter turnout and put them pieces together, and then you take these other areas, the Monroe Avenues, the Park Avenues, these areas, the University Avenues that typically have more finances, different demographics, and more resources. It tells you the numbers and why the data is important, of why voting is important, and why filling out this information and engaging and being involved, how this redistricting thing, all of these pieces come together.
You know, it's so complex for a lot of people.
It's very complex.
It's so complex, but it's very simple, right? And I just want to really make it simple for people to understand at the end of the day, right? You can hear former elected officials talking about why it's important to vote. We can talk about that until we're blue in the face.
Right.
You can see today that, different laws that were put into place, the Voting Rights Act and all of that, different things around DEI and all of that changing. Right?
Daily.
You can, but when people feel it skin to skin, when it truly starts to affect you, then you understand why you need to vote. I was at court this week, and there was this very nice lady. It was an eviction court, and she wasn't getting evicted because of non-payment of rent. No, she was getting evicted because the people wanted to sell the house, right? And she says, look, I'm a nurse. I pay my rent on time. I have a nice place. And I've been looking. I don't have anywhere to go. Right? Now, you have this woman here that has these resources. And then you have those individuals that also that may not have the same resources also don't have anywhere to go. The housing market is so scarce right now. You have landlords that are charging a ton of money for broken down apartments. You have people that are buying property from out of town and charging astronomical amounts of rent. When it hits you skin to skin, when you start to see that the things that you are used to, I used to be able to go and get an apartment and it be affordable. I used to be able to go to the grocery store and spend $100 and fill my cart up. I used to be able to go to the gas station and fill my tank up with $50. I used to be able to go to McDonald's or wherever fast food restaurant with $5 and be able to feed my family. I used to be able to do those things. The reason why it is important for you to vote is because this will hit you skin to skin.
It's going to hit you.
It's going to touch you.
Yes.
And when it touches you, you will understand that we have an issue here that only the people can solve. Only the people can solve it.
That's right.
And the people can solve it by getting involved, by voting, by first understanding what is happening right before your eyes. You started off earlier saying, do people really like it this way? Right? Do we really like it this way? And on some levels, I said it all the time. Our community was program rich, results poor. It's still program rich, results poor. And because there's big money in keeping people exactly where they are, it's big money in keeping people complacent. Because if you don't recognize, right? If you don't recognize what I'm doing and get involved, I'm good, right? I can do everything that I want to do because you're not paying attention.
Right.
But the difference between what happened when your dad was alive, when Assemblyman David Gant was alive, when, Andrew Langston was alive, and all that was they put a light on it.
And that's what we're trying to do and what we're going to continue to do at the Love and Light podcast, powered by 103.9 WDKX. This is episode 58. We're going to just keep this conversation going. It's so important. We typically don't have enough time. We're going to come back. So much to dive into. Today was all about redistricting, New York State, what that looks like for the state. Here locally. But the biggest line is you got to wake up. You got to pay attention. You got to see, not only is it about registering, but because we got tons of people that are already registered. Hundreds of thousands of people are registered in this county. But the fact of the matter is they're not voting. So we're not just talking about, go out and register a whole bunch of people. No, because you got a whole bunch of people that's still not voting. Right. We need people to exercise and to, it says faith without works is dead. So we need you to actually do it and not be talking about it and see how that changes the dynamics of what's happening in our community. So, we always say, let your light shine. Don't let anybody put a lampshade. You can't put a lampshade on the sun. Keep shining until we see you again. God bless you.
And of course, stay loving to everyone you see. Everyone needs love.
God bless you. We'll see you soon.